Now, it's time for our Merabh. Let's put in the music. Dear Shambhara, take a good deep breath, relax. Take a good deep breath and relax and enjoy. Remember, Merabh, it's not the time for trying to think about it. And, doesn't that hurt to try to think about everything? And when you realize you don't have to. A natural process takes place where the human evolves into the master devolves into the human. And so many things now just start taking care of themselves. This is Merabh of remembering, but remembering something that prior to this would have been difficult to remember. Remembering that you've chosen to be here. And maybe not a level that you can remember with the human mind, but I ask you to remember into who you really are. Let's take a deep breath as we go into this Merabh of Remembrance. It's remembering that you came into this lifetime knowing it would be very different. There would be many challenges and transformations. And then you come to that point of what I'm calling samsara, where it just ends. But end doesn't mean final, it doesn't mean complete, it just is the end of an old way of doing things. It would have been difficult to imagine what comes next. It would have been difficult to do this a while back because, you see, if we'd have gone out there, even in the imagination, we'd have gone out there and so what comes next, you would have probably just gotten a big blank, a big nothing. It's kind of a personal point of singularity, meaning things change so much that they wouldn't be recognized by, the old self. Didn't have the capacity to imagine like that. But now with the maturity and the wisdom and the new light, we can now remember, we can now imagine into what comes next. And it's not just being a little better human at all. It's something far beyond that. So, I ask you to take a deep breath and remember what comes next. Your point of remembering is not even necessarily from this lifetime as a human. Because most all of you didn't really know, you couldn't imagine it. The remembrance comes from the soul level. The soul desire to end the cycles of the human life, yet stay here on the planet for a while. It's always been there in your potentials. It's always been there, but very distant, very really out of consciousness for the most part. But today we can visit that remembrance of the soul beyond samsara into the divine. The details were never known by the soul, not at all. I didn't say on certain dates these certain things are going to happen, not at all. The soul simply knew that something new comes now. Something that is well beyond the human condition. Something that defies logic. Take a deep breath and now, as the Master, remember. Remember into what comes next. In Zen, they would say, nothing comes next. Nothing. But we're going to leapfrog right over that. We're going to go beyond that. What comes next? It's not nothing. It's totally new. It's way beyond. Let yourself feel into this and remember the higher calling between the human and the soul. And that human slowly fading. As the light of the Master comes in, it's not needed to do what it did before. Let this desire of the soul be with you now to remember it. It's a feeling, it's a sense, it's not details. It's there. Let it come to you. Some of you, you're trying to go out and search for it. No, let it come to you as the Master. The remembrance of and the knowingness of beyond samsara. The Master and the soul have always known, have always felt, have always understood this potential could come. Not sure when or exactly how, but never worried about those details, never. For they knew, they've always known. Take a deep breath now as the Master and remember. remembering the soul's desire to turn experiences into wisdom and offer them back. As the Master incarnate on earth, to offer this back to the Master. Remembering how the human, it comes to completion. It steps aside to allow the Master of itself, the Master, the true Master now, to be here and present. Many of you have thought and dreamt about life as a human, about doing things, accomplishing things, and all that is wonderful because it gave you a lot of experiences. A lot of you have thought about things like realization, enlightenment. Sometimes it felt very close, other times very elusive, very distant. And if you remember now, it was always there. Now what comes next? Let yourself remember. Oh, and please again, as the Master. And the Master already understands. You don't need the details. You don't need specifics. It's a sense. It's a knowingness. What comes next? Now let that come to you, remembering. And dear human, now, quiet down. Let go. And move aside so the Master can be right here. Another way of saying it is, please remember that you are the Master. Remember a dream of being here. In your own freedom and released of all those deep limitations of being here and living the new light. This is a desire of the soul, a desire of the Master, and in the remembering now, you bring it here. The fading of the human is not a sad thing. Portions of that humanness will still be here to serve the very specific human needs, but the human will no longer have to manage and handle everything and make all the decisions. Human, that facet of you can now quiet down, settle down, as you remember yourself as the Master. Another way of putting it is the intense focus on just the human facet That can give way now, open up, as you remember yourself now as the Master. As you remember the soul's desire to be here in light and in new light. Breathe in and remember. It's all right there. It's all yours. Breathe in and remember. Let it come to you. Remembering is opening up yourself. It's opening up to what's always actually been there, to desires that have been there for so very long. And beauty is, it's not about, again, it's really not about anything new, so to speak. Nothing's new, it's always been there. Always the potential for you, the Master, to be here on this planet in the new light. And now it's just remembering back into that. And then it's there. It's actually not even about believing it, it's simply remembering it. And then it'll come to you. You don't have to force yourself to believe or to work at it. It's just taking a deep breath, opening up, and remembering. As you do, it's like you start to get that feeling it's always been there. It's always been there. You just weren't conscious of it. The Master incarnate has always been here. But there's been such a focus on that human facet and the human needs and wants, the human's constant, what's the purpose? Now you can take a deep breath and just remember. And as you do now, the energies work different. The experiences come to you differently. There's much less having to work at life. As you open up and remember that you are the Master, that you've always been here, you also remember that things just come to you. Oh, that wasn't the human experience. The human had to scrape and crawl for just about everything. But as you remember the Master, it's very, very different. Let's take a deep breath into the remembrance, what was a dream and what now becomes very real. Take a deep breath and let it in. Let the human evolve into the Master now. samsara is the end of the cycles. And that's exactly what's happening now, but an end not meaning death, simply meaning a new way. Let's take a deep breath into remembering.